try that again. All right, time for Kids Inc. to be dismissed. So kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, you guys are free to go out those double white doors. If you're a guest with us or unfamiliar with Kids Inc., it's just a Bible study, a lesson. They do some games and some crafts. Helps you be able to pay attention, but also helps them kind of learn at their pace. And the first time your kid goes, we just ask that you check them in there at the check-in station. And the next week when you come back, you'll be able to just check them in automatically. If you caught the announcements and you've got that church app, the most important thing that you could ever get on your phone, the church app, you can check in remotely as you're driving in. And if you're like us, you're arguing about your kids having unmatching socks or their hair's not done, you can just go ahead and check them in, and it's all done. You just scan a little card. When you come in, it prints it off. It's beautiful. Works out great. So now that the kids are gone, we can get to business. So we're going to be talking about the mind of a disciple, what it looks like to be a Christian. And really what we're going to talk about is maturity, what it looks like to be a mature Christian, what it looks like to have those things in our life. And as I was working through this, it got me thinking about working out. A lot of times we kind of make commitments, usually around January 1st, like I'm going to work out, I'm going to get healthier, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to do this plan or that plan. And sometimes we do really good. Like sometimes we're like 6, 7, 8, 9 months into it. We're like, man, I've been knocking it out the park. I've done 312 workouts. Like I've not ate a carb since like Jesus came. Like I've done all these things. But you're standing there and you're looking at the mirror, or you're standing on the scale, or you're still wearing that shirt and you're like, it's not working. Like something is not computing, whether it's the workout or the eating, like something's not going on. The weights, like I just don't know what's going on. And you start to ask yourself, like maybe it's just me, like maybe I'm just stuck. Like maybe my body's just different. Like I'm not made to look like Sam Solik. And if you're honest, you just start to just ask that question, is any of this even worth it? What I've realized is a lot of times spiritually, that's what we do. We've surrendered our life to Jesus. We've been going through these steps. We go to church. We read our Bibles. We've been praying. We've plugged into community, but we just don't feel it all the time. We start to wonder, like, well, I don't feel Jesus. I don't feel His Spirit moving. I don't look like other people look like. If I'm honest, I mess up more than I even want to tell someone about. I lose my temper. I give into temptation. I'm still anxious. I still have these sins in my life. And you start to ask that question, like, shouldn't I be further along than I am now? And you know, that's not a bad question. That's not a sign of failure. Truly, it's just a sign that you care. That you've looked at your life and you said, where I'm at, I assume I should be further than I am. Why is this going on? Well, I think Philippians 2 gives us the answer of really what this looks like to work out our salvation, to have the mind of a disciple, to look like a mature Christian. And it says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who's working in you both to will and to work for His good purpose. Really, just like going to the gym, the real growth happens under the scene. And then all of a sudden, it starts to come out, and you're like, oh, wow, this really is working. All those stupid workouts that I've been doing, like they're starting to show fruit. And all those prayers, all those Bible studies, all those services I attended, all of a sudden that stuff starts to show up, and spiritual maturity starts to show, but oftentimes it's more invisible than it ever is visible in the believer's life. And so today we're not talking about chasing a feeling. Like this is far from like just feeling this, like, oh man, I feel like God's in my life. It's talking about something that's taking place deep inside your heart that you would say, this isn't about performance. This is about a progress in my walk with the Lord. That there would be these marks that you have, that you live towards maturity. And so your first point is this: maturity works out what God is working in. And it comes from Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 through 13. It says, therefore, my dear friends, just as you have always obeyed, so now, not only in my presence, but even more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who's working in you both to will and to work according to His good purpose. So Paul says this, therefore, and if you understand English language, anytime there's a therefore, you have to ask, what is it there for? And Paul's referring to something that just took place before this. And what he's talking about is that Christ himself humbled himself to where he left heaven. He came and lived on this earth, and he died a death. And if you remember, it wasn't just a death, but it was the death on a cross. He was crucified for you and I, and he defeated death to now his name is exalted to where no other name can be, and every knee shall bow at some point. And so because of that, Paul says, because of that, live your life this way. And it's not live your life with like this legalistic performance. It's not come to church so you can check off a box or read your Bible so you can just say you did it or do this. What it's about is this deep obedience in your life. That you would choose to follow God every single step of the way. And so just as you have always obeyed, Paul says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. We should stop there and take note that work out is not work for. Like there's this idea that you maybe could work for your salvation. And I want to be honest, there is absolutely nothing that you could do to earn your salvation. There's not enough money you could give. There's not enough prayers you could pray or someone could pray for you. There's not enough serving. There's not enough church attendance. There's not enough legacy that could be before you or after you that Jesus would look at you and say, because of these things, man, you've earned it. No, it's because of his mercy and grace that we can even have salvation. And so Paul doesn't say work for, he just says work out. Which means this, that God's put something inside of us that we need to start to work out in our lives. That's a huge difference. Like you don't just get like muscle, like you just don't sign up for the gym membership and poof, all of a sudden you've got muscle and cardio. No, you've got to show up or you'll never grow. Salvation's the same exact way. You've got to show up and put in work so that you can mature as a Christian. It's not about earning, but it is about effort. It's not about merit, but it truly is about maturity in your life. But he gives us like really this pretty heavy weight to it. Like work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Now, I hear fear and trembling, and it sounds like, man, I should be scared that God who is in heaven, like if I mess up, like I'm going to get zapped, kind of like that Evan Almighty, like the almighty smiter is up in heaven just waiting for us to mess up. Like that's what I think of when I think of fear and trembling, but it's not that. Now, we should fear the Lord, but this is more a word that ties into the Old Testament. It's this fear and trembling that when God's presence was around, that these people stepped back in awe of who he was. There was this reverence that is the God who spoke and created. That is the God who parted the Red Seas. That's the God who raised people from the dead. Like this God right here stands before us, and they would step back in awe and reverence of who he was. And so Paul says, as you work out your salvation, don't do it lightly. Don't do it as if it was just something that just doesn't really matter, like some checkbox system, but do it with awe and reverence that the God that lives in you is the same God that did all the things that we read about in the Bible. That his spirit, now that the Bible says that when Jesus went, that he sent a helper, and that helper was the Holy Spirit, and that Holy Spirit comes and lives inside each believer. Live out your salvation, work it out, knowing that God lives inside you. That's a pretty big weight to think about. That when I choose the things of the flesh, that spirit doesn't just close his eyes, but he sits there. He dwells inside of me. That same God that has this desire for me to live out my life in obedience. And it's not just a desire, but the Bible teaches here that he also gives us the ability to live out our salvation. He gives us the desire. Now, I think that takes years for that to slowly start to change. That all of a sudden, what used to be the desires of Travis's heart, God slowly started to remove those things where I actually feel like I desire more the things that God would desire for me. Before, it was all about me and Travis and what I wanted and what made me feel good. But as God started to work these things out in my life and I've continued to show up and put in the work with him, all of a sudden I start to get closer to what God would will for my life. And it's been of not my own merit. It's been because his spirit now dwells in me and I have the ability to do these things. And so God starts a work in you. That's our salvation. As we get saved and we trust him, this new desire is just put into us. And then he gives us the desire and the ability to continue to work that out. That's the Christian life. The big word, if you want a big word, is sanctification. It's the process of being made more like Jesus every single day of your life. I wish it would be so much better if when we got saved, boom, we looked like Jesus. Man, the heartache and the heartbreak and the things in my life that would have never happened, I'd be ecstatic. But the truth is this, he saved me when I was in 6th grade. From 6th grade to now, let me tell you, I could tell you things that you would shake your head and say, are you being serious? I'm like, I'm being serious. And there are things that I wouldn't be proud of, but there's still sin that exists. But every single day, we look more and more like Jesus. Now, you guys are probably a lot like that. There's probably things in your life that you say, man, I wish I missed that chapter. I wish I didn't have to go through that. I wish that, boom, I just look just like Jesus. Well, continue to show up, continue to put in the work, and slowly we look more and more like Jesus every single day of our life. You guys, I try not to do a lot of cleaning. If we do a big cleaning around the house, I'll go outside, I fill up the bird bath, I make sure outside things are done. I sweep the driveway. I've swept the driveway more than I've ever swept the kitchen, I can promise you that. And it doesn't bother me. I enjoy sweeping the driveway. But when I was a young kid and my mom would force me to clean my room, I had a huge toy box. And it was big. I could fit in it and like 12 friends could. And I threw everything into this toy box. Well, when my mom said it's time to deep clean the room, I would drag this toy box out. And my room was clean. But it was just all in one box. And I start to pull stuff out of it. I'd sit toys over here. I had Hot Wheels. I'd put my Hot Wheels over here. I'd put my wrestlers over here. I'd put my G.I. Joes over here. And I'd just start to sort them all out. And it didn't matter. It didn't, without failure, I would stop at some point and I'd say, what in the world has my mother done to me? This was clean. And now it's complete disaster. Everything is unorganized. It's in chaos. And my mom would say, keep working. And so I'd keep working, and I'd get in that toy box, and I'd grab the tote that was labeled Hot Wheels, and I'd put Hot Wheels in it. And one that was labeled G.I. Joes, I'd put G.I. Joes in it. And by the end of it, you know what I had? Well, exhaustion is one thing I had. But the truth is this, by the time it was done, I had an actual clean room. I had an organized room that stuff was put where it went. That is what our life looks like a lot of times when Jesus comes into it. He comes in, and truthfully, we've got a lot of messes in our life. We've got sin. We've got things that from a childhood that we've had as we've grown up. And Jesus comes in and he says, hey, I'm gonna pull all that out. And you're like, hold on, what? I thought when I got saved, everything was going to be good. And it was just everything was going to fall into place and no more problems. And Jesus is like, no, it's a process. And just hang on, because we're about to take all that childhood trauma and we're going to put it over here. We're going to take that sin and we're going to put it over here. We're going to take those selfish desires. We're going to put it over here. We're going to take your wills and your desires and your dreams and we're going to put it over there. And then you step back and you say, oh my goodness, I don't know if I signed up for this. And Jesus says, just trust the master. And if you continue to trust him, all of a sudden Jesus starts to help you with really the Spirit, but they start to put stuff where it goes, and you're like, oh man, things are starting to look a little better. That's a picture of the Christian life. It's a mess at times, but it doesn't mean that it's broken. It just means you've got to continue to show up and continue to trust Jesus. You've got to continue to work out what Jesus has already started working in you. And unfortunately, he doesn't rush things, because he's trying to build character. He's trying to build Christian character in your life, that he would say, I'm a lot less worried about your comfort than I am your Christian character. So the Spirit's going to pull out those things you don't want to. And he's going to reveal things in your life, and you're going to say, I don't want to deal with that. And the Spirit's going to say, no, we've got to work out this salvation in your life. We've got to work through these things. And sometimes it's slow and sometimes it's painful, but if you press on before it's over, you'll reflect Christ more than you ever did. And so I wonder what you're waiting for in your life for God to just magically change that you're not choosing obedience in. Maybe it's a sin in your life. Maybe it's something that you know God's called you to, and you're like, well, I'll just wake up one day and do it. You've got to choose obedience in those areas. The goal is not to just play church, but the goal is to look more like Christ outside of church. That when people see you, they would see Jesus through your actions. That when you speak, people would say, man, I see Jesus through the way they speak. Men, when they see you talk to your wife and they see you deal with your children at sports, that they'd say, man, I see Jesus reflected in that person. Wives, whenever they see you respond to your husband, they say, I see Jesus in that person's life. And your obedience matters, not because it saves you, but because it's evidence that there's a Lord that lives in you named Jesus Christ. And he's not asking you to be strong enough. This isn't one of those messages about like pulled up, just be strong enough. This is what it's a message about. Trust the one that lives in you. He is strong enough. Trust the one that gives you these desires, that's created a new heart in you. So the second point is this: maturity chooses joy over grumbling. So first, maturity is working out what God's working in you. The second thing is that maturity chooses joy over grumbling. Philippians 2:14 starts like this: do everything without grumbling and arguing, so that you may be blameless and pure, children of God who are faultless in a crooked and perverted generation, among whom you shine like stars in the world by holding firm to the word of life. Verse 14, we could probably stay there for a long, long time. It says, do everything without grumbling and arguing. I like the word everything because I studied it a lot in Greek class, and through my studies, this is what I've come to understand everything means in Greek. Everything. It's like pretty simple. Like not most things, like not just the spiritual things, not just church things, like everything. Do everything without grumbling. Do everything without grumbling and arguing, which means there's no loopholes. Like there's not like, well, can't I just complain about this because you've got to know this person did me real dirty, or can't I just complain about it? You don't get, my boss is a straight jerk and you would want to punch him too, Jesus. I'm telling you, you would not like him. Like and here's why there's no loopholes. Not grumbling and arguing is one of the most counterculture things that we can see in the Bible. Because we live in a world, especially in our American culture, where everything is fueled by arguing and complaining. We complain about everything. We complain about gas prices. We complain about the government. We complain about church decisions. We complain about our spouses. We complain about work and the weather and the Wi-Fi. I can't think of what we don't complain about. But usually we do this. We baptize it. I'm just venting. I'm just getting a little bit off my, I'm just letting a little steam off. You know how it goes. And this is what Paul says. He says, stop. Stop doing that because it kills our witness in a lost and dying world. When we complain and argue and upset about every little thing that's in the world, it stops people looking at us and say, man, something's different about this person. He says that you may be blameless and pure, that people would see you and you would shine like stars in a dark world. He says that we live in this crooked and perverted world. Sometimes I think Paul was just writing this in our day, but the truth is this: it was crooked and perverted then, and it's crooked and perverted now. And the call to the Christian life is to live in a way that you would stand out, that you would shine like a star amongst all that. And what makes us stand out? Is it our politics that make us stand out? Is our preference that when people talk to us, is it my opinion that makes me stand out? Or is it a peace that we have that surpasses all other peace because of Jesus? Is it our refusal to complain when everyone else does? And I was trying to think about this. And listen, I'm like a habitual complainer sometimes. When I was working on this, I'm like, oh man, Travis, you need to complain less. And sometimes I write in my notes hashtag shut up, Travis. And because I get into that saying, I go to get gas, anytime it's more than 99 cents, I'm upset about it. So yeah, you can imagine how long I've been complaining about gas prices. It's just bad. And I think it's a bad representation of me at times. It's I complain. I do say that. I'm just venting. But listen, I have a time or a person in my life that doesn't complain a lot to other people. She told me today, she's like, I complain to you all the time. I'm like, this is true. She does. But that's a spouse thing. So a lot of people don't know this, and this is why you don't know it, because she begs me never to tell people. We've been to 3 different churches, and she's begged me every time, Travis, do not tell them about me. And it's my wife. My wife was diagnosed with cancer 2017. And I'm telling you, if I was diagnosed with cancer, you guys would know it. I would complain about it. But she doesn't. She'll talk about it if you drag words out of her, but she doesn't get on Facebook and she doesn't go and say, woe is me. She decided when she got diagnosed, Travis, this will not be the story of our family. Our family will not be known because I have cancer. She's like, it is not going to be the soundtrack of our life. And I'm like, if I get a cold, it's the soundtrack of my life. I'm serious. It's rough going for me. Some of the guys are laughing. They're like, I get that. But so she made a decision this will not be what people know us by. And you want to know how many messages and how many people have wrote us and said, hey, your wife is so encouraging. I'm going through this right now, and I've been watching from afar what she's going through. And all I ever see is her talk about how good Jesus is and how this day was promised and all this stuff. And it's changed the way that people have seen things in her life. When Frank had fallen and like broke his back, I called him one day. I said, "How are you doing?" And he started to complain a little. He goes, I was thinking about this. He said, I'm complaining about my back hurting. And he's like, and your wife's over there with cancer not complaining. He said, I just got to change my perspective. That's what the Christian does when we choose not to engage in this complaining style of life. The perverted, dark world sees us and they say, man, you're not freaking out. You're not complaining. You're not doing all this stuff that everyone else is doing. What in the world is going on? And you get to shine in the storm. Like that is the call of the church, to be a steadfast, I guess, lighthouse that reflects Jesus in this dark world. That when everything is crashing in, and let me tell you, everything is crashing in every single day. You don't have to look far in the world to find places that sin is just growing like wildfire. You don't have to look far to see the next war that seems to be breaking out, or the next pandemic that seems to be on the rising, or the next scandal that's going to take place. Like, you don't have to look very far at all. Really, all you got to do is flip on one news channel, and you're like, yep, the world's a hot mess, and we're just living in it. And we have to choose to be a light that shines in that world, which means we've got to refuse to gossip. We've got to serve even when other people are complaining. We've got to choose contentment over bitterness. We've got to look like we're holding fast to the word of life. Now, here's the escape. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that it's not hard. It doesn't mean that there's not been times that Amanda and I have just sat and wept over the diagnosis. Like, it means it still hurts, but it means that whenever the lost and dying world sees you, is they see something wildly different because you've been made more like Jesus every single step of the way. And so I wonder, what's the soundtrack of your all's life? Is the soundtrack of your life what we're talking about, or have you let something else be kind of the overbearing truth about who you are? Like, is your social media a megaphone for Christ, or is it just a place that you take your complaints? Like, do you scream, Jesus has changed my life in a radical way, or do you just seem to go by like everyone else does? Grumbling doesn't just harden your heart either. It harms your witness. Your coworkers are watching what you're going through. Your kids are listening to the conversations. Your church is seeing the things, and you communicate something when you go through these things. You either communicate like, hey, I'm mature, I'm walking with the Lord, or you communicate that you're not. And we want to be. Like, my desire is to be more mature every single day of my life. I want to look different than I looked yesterday. I for sure want to look different than I did last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Like, I want to look more like Jesus every single step of the way. I hope that's your prayer. The next point is this: maturity pours out itself for Christ. Paul goes on to say, but even if I am poured out as a drink offering on the sacrificial service of your faith, I am glad and rejoice with all of you. In the same way, you should also be glad and rejoice with me. Paul, he's in prison. I think we talked about this. And when Paul writes this, it's easy for us at times to read the Bible, because we get chapter 1, 2, and 3, like kind of in a little 2-minute like area. Paul didn't know what the next chapter had. Like Paul had absolutely no clue what was going to take place when he's writing this letter. And so he says, even if I'm poured out as a drink offering, which is what he means is even if I die for Christ, like you should rejoice. Like, I'm going to rejoice. And Paul's saying, if I'm glad, if I'm going to rejoice if I die, like, you better rejoice too. Like, don't start mourning that I died, because I'm rejoicing. And he talked about a little bit that to be absent is to be present with Christ. And this is another Old Testament imagery. It's at the altar. They wouldn't like just like dip a little bit or just spill a little bit. They would pour the whole cup over the altar. And Paul's saying this if my life is poured completely out for Christ, like, I'm stoked. And listen, I'm not sure if you told me, man, you got to go die for Jesus. Like I pray my heart would be like Paul's. I'd be like, man, I get to be poured out for Jesus. But I don't know. I've never been in Paul's situation. The truth is this: most of us have never been or may never be in Paul's situation, where we've got to say, man, my life is on the line for Jesus. which means the things that I'm willing to let go of like seem so small, friends and the things that I want, dreams and stuff like that. Like if Paul was willing to die for Jesus, like what more should I be willing to do? And so he says, immaturity says this. Every time, immaturity says, how much do I have to give? It's the same thing we ask when it comes to giving, serving, anything. Like immaturity says, well, how much? How much do you want from me, God? Like, how much do I got to give, God, that you would give me the thumbs up? Now, maturity says, how much can I pour out? Like, how much can I give? Not how much do I have to, but how much can I give? How much can I serve? How much can I show up and do this? How much can I invest? And so there's a little different. I was reading about people who give it all. And we talked about Jim Elliott a couple weeks ago going and he gave his life, and his wife Sarah came and she finished the mission, and those people got saved. And I was reading about another lady, her name's Sarah Boardman. Her husband George and her started a mission to the Karen people group overseas. I can't remember where it's at now. And they go over there in the early 1800s and they start sharing the gospel with this people group. And George gets sick, and if you're not living in the United States, and especially even in the 1800s everywhere, like the medical system wasn't what it is now. And so getting sick is sometimes a death sentence. George gets sick, he dies over there. Sarah's already lost 2 kids. She's got 2 kids left, and everyone's thinking, man, Sarah's coming home. Like there is no way she's going to stay over there and continue the mission. Well, she does. She raises her children there. She teaches women the scripture. She marries a guy that goes on to be the father of modern missions. And they say this, from 1788-ish to the late 1800s, 200,000 people in the Karen people group got saved. 200,000 people. That's a testimony that has changed generations and generations. All because of the blood of Jesus, but also all because some person said, I'm willing to be poured out for the gospel. I'm willing to give it all so that other people could know Jesus. She lived her life with this kind of attitude. She says, my life's not my own. It is joyfully poured out for the one who poured himself out for me. Most of you guys probably never heard of Sarah Boardman. She didn't have a platform. She didn't have this. She never got famous. I don't even know if there was ever any like famous person that you can tie back to being saved through the Karen People Group. I don't even know where the Karen People Group is. Like this is something that on the radar of our life like never even happened. Let me tell you, in the radar of eternity, man, there was hundreds of thousands of people that have been saved because some lady and her husband said, I'll give it all for Jesus. Maturity looks like that. The mind of a disciple says, how much can I give? How much can I give to the Lord? And so that's what Paul's saying. And this is why Paul says it, and this is why Sarah does it. It's because true maturity begins with the attitude of Jesus. Like none of this happens without God first working in you. Like this, there's not like you just show up and you're able to do this. This is something that must take place first inside of you. Like God must first start to work on your heart. I was talking to a guy, and I guess I've been pastoring for a while. I've been in youth ministry. I've got my master's in the Bible, and the guy was saying like how do I know? And we're talking about this like aha moment that happens in your life. It's like you're living your life and you're kind of, let me use the word ignorant in a nice way. Like you're ignorant to spiritual things. Like before I was saved, the Bible made absolutely no sense to me. And I don't know about you, but I'm telling you, when I read it, I knew Jesus, I was just confused by it. And the preacher would be talking about it, and I'm like, what in the world is he talking about? Like they're going to kill a goat for me? Like I have no clue what the sacrificial lamb he's talking about. But then all of a sudden, 6th grade summer, God started to work in my heart. And I'm sitting there, and we were in this open air. I mean, it's like 9,000 degrees in summer. And like, I knew at that moment, like, I need that Jesus. And if you would have asked me to write a paper on what was going on, I'd say, I don't know. I have no clue, but I know in my heart that Jesus he's talking about is real. Like that he really died for me, and that if I don't trust him and I die, I'll spend all of eternity in hell. And that's what I'm talking about when it talks about Jesus working something in you. It's that. And none of this maturity matters unless you've had that moment in your life. That you've said to yourself, like, I understand I'm a sinner. And the truth is, every single one of us is a sinner. You don't have to agree with me. You can think better of yourself, but the truth is this: you've not only sinned, like you're currently actively a sinner. Like you've got sin in your life that if we started to broadcast your sin on the screens behind us, you'd never show your face in Fulton again. You'd be like, I'm out. And the truth is, every single person has sinned, and the wage of sin is death. Not a physical death. Like we've all got an appointment with a physical death, but a spiritual death. Which means that there's something inside of us that is going to live for eternity. It's not the flesh and blood. It's not the mind, but it's the spirit that God's given us. It's going to live forever. Like you are an eternal being. You will live for eternity. The question is, where do you live? What is your residency that you're going to have? The Bible teaches that if you've never trusted Jesus, that whenever that day comes, that you're appointed with death and you stand before God, that he'll say to you, depart from me, for I never knew you. And that the sins that you've committed, that you will pay the price of those for all of eternity in a place called hell. Now, the flip side of that is amazing news. Is that there's this guy named Jesus Christ. He was 100% God, dwelling in heaven with God the Father and God the Spirit. And he's sitting there in perfection where the angels sing, holy, holy, holy. And he's looking down on us, and we're a mess. Just like we are still now. And he'd given us all this sacrificial system and things to try to take place of this sin guilt that we have. And the truth was, all it was to do was to show us that there's no offering, there's no sacrificial system that man can do to take place of this sin. It's a big bill that we owe. But the one thing that could take place of it was the sacrifice, the blood of somebody who was perfect. Jesus enters the picture. Leaves heaven, the Bible teaches, born of a virgin named Mary, lives a sinless life, goes into ministry, and eventually is crucified for you and I. Put in the tomb. 3 days later, he defeats death. The Bible teaches that he had the keys to death in his hand, and that his blood was sufficient enough to cover all the sins that you and I have ever committed or ever will commit. That's how powerful his blood was, because he was fully God. He was without sin. And it says if you'll trust in that you can have everlasting life in heaven through what he did. Not through what I did, not through what you did, but through what a guy named Jesus Christ did on the cross 2,000 years ago. He never grumbled about it. He never argued. He went to the cross willingly for you and I. I've been talking about it. I guess maybe the song is just one of those songs that just kind of shook me. That song, what kind of self-control is it? That Jesus hung on the cross and had angels at his fingertips. That he could have spoken and angels would have ascended from heaven and he would have never got hurt. But he hung there and he suffered in agony for you and I. Like he died so that you and I could be forgiven. He rose so that you and I could be made new. Like he now lives so that you and I can live in him. And the call to that is to strive to obey him every single day of our lives. The mark of a mature Christian is that we would shine out because we've been saved by God. But you can't pour out if you've never been filled. You can't be poured out for Jesus if you've never been filled by the Spirit. And so have you trusted Christ? Like not just his example. Like it's one thing to think Jesus is a good guy and he set a good example, but have you trusted that his sacrifice makes payment for your sin? Have you trusted that you no longer want to be Lord of your own life, but you want Jesus to be Lord of your life? I don't know. I'll invite the praise team up, and we're going to have a song of an invitation and a time you can respond, and I'll be down here, and maybe Braden will be down here. I don't actually see him right now, but you're the only person in this room that knows if you're truly saved. That if you've made a decision in your heart, that if God's called you and you've responded, you're the only one in here that knows. God knows. But in this room, you're the only person that knows. And you can go through life and you can trick everybody and you can live this false life that you convince other people that you're saved. But you'll get to heaven and you'll stand before God and at judgment throne and he'll say, depart from me, for I do not know you. And there'll be no second chances. There's no do-agains, no retries. Like it's for all of eternity that you'll spend in hell. But today you can trust Jesus. You can lay your life down and say, everything I've got is for you. My will, my desire, my dreams, my family, my job. I want to live it out for you, Jesus. It won't be easy. It'll be messy. Feel like that child trying to clean his room with everything around, wondering, man, what am I even doing? But slowly, if you continue to trust and you continue to work out what he's working in, he'll start to make you look more and more like him every day. Now, for the rest of us, let's not settle for shallow Christianity. Let's look for where God's calling us to serve at today. Let's not be a part of grumbling, but instead let's be a part of gratitude. When coworkers and people start to grumble, let's start to say things, man, I'm happy for. Let's serve with sacrifice. Let's live out what God's called us to do. I'll pray. Heavenly Father,